and thank you all for coming. Today's topic is spotting the difference and closing the gap between junior developers and mid-level developers. So I was motivated to speak about this topic because I used to be a junior developer, and although I had lots of motivation and thought I had all the answers about how to think about certain things, topics, and how to behave in the workplace and things like that, after conversations with others who I looked up to, mentors, mid-level, senior developers, architects, people like that, having conversation with them, I realized that while I was on the right track, some of the things and ways I thought about, how to move was incorrect, and that, we all have room for improvement, obviously. So the purpose for today's talk is so that if you are, mid-level or above, and you have juniors or anybody under you, and they have questions and things like that, the helping them move forward, or if you're in that position yourself, coming up with that switch about, hitting it and adjusting and being able to move towards the goals that you have for your career, personally and professionally. So, as I said, who this talk is for, upper management, y'all might be frustrated with your junior developers not advancing quickly enough. You might be the junior developer wondering why you're not advancing, or you're just looking to accelerate your process, and you want the inside scoop on, what mid-level developers know and how they operate. Or maybe you just value saving time, being efficient, reducing effort strain, increasing your value, and making more money eventually. So, at the end of this talk, my objectives today, I want you all to leave here with a better sense of how to advance or help others advance their own knowledge and careers. And I also want to cut the average time of lifespan of a junior dev phase in half. So we're going to do that by identifying the major but often overlooked or misidentified aspects of being a junior developer and what holds them back, and also identifying what sets mid-level developers apart from them. And we're also going to use some examples. So, why this topic is important. So the biggest point of any relationship is the value. So just like between a boss and their employee, a company and their client, one of the most overlooked aspects of being a junior developer is understanding the value that you bring to your organization. So you want to be able to know the answers to the questions, why are we doing this? Why does this relationship exist? Why do we need each other? What are we getting out of it? And how does everyone win? So are there any junior developers here today? Can you tell me why you were hired?
Why what?
Why you were hired?
Why I was hired? That's a good question.
If you were to just take one wild guess, what do you think that would be?
Potential.
Great answer. That is the answer. So what these three pictures have in common right here, they demonstrate potential energy. So just like a company with a great idea and a good product, but no sales, a quarterback ready to launch that football into the end zone, basketball player at the height of their art, shooting the basketball. Some of you might need to release, others might need a push, but converting that potential energy into real energy is the most important value that you have as a junior developer. So from the moment you start, your value is in the fact that you have that potential energy. You've shown yourself your ability to seem coachable, eager, willing, capable, and valuable. It's your job to deliver on that. So far, you haven't proven it yet. Your understanding of the underlying principles is limited, and this limits your ability to ask the right questions, find the right answers, get things done on your own, save time, and get things done. So, how do you turn that potential into real value? The first thing that I did on my journey is an internship. It lasted 3 months, and I had to compete with other aspiring developers to do the best. I did well, I got hired, and the next thing I had to show was that I could listen and follow directions. So I needed to show I could follow the workflow process, communicate, study, practice, and get things done well and get them done on time. So now let's compare some example personas. So persona 1, this junior developer can only be assigned to one project. Most of their questions require stand-up time with other developers because that developer that they're speaking to does not understand anything about the problem, and the developer asking the question doesn't understand anything about the problem. They don't communicate their workflow on their tasks, which leaves others putting in extra efforts to understand what's going on, trying to figure out what they're working on and how to complete it. They don't complete their tasks on time and on budget, and they're normally too afraid to tell anybody. This is how they typically spend their day. So 30% is writing code that fails, and this is how it comes about. Most of the time is asking questions. Next, they're waiting. They're doing a little bit of researching and collaborating. And so this ends up being the result of they're getting things done, but those things aren't actually done because there's a lot of holes that they're leaving because they're not doing and following the process. So, junior developer B, they can be assigned, from 1 to 2 projects. They communicate their goals for the week and for the day. They ask questions which can typically be answered quickly. Some might require some stand-up time. It just depends on the actual concept or problem that they're trying to handle. Sometimes when you're doing things with code or certain, JavaScript issues, you might actually have to get on a call to be able to get things explained to you rather than just, typing them out. But if they can be handled with a quick response, that developer knows how to ask that question. They update their tasks with the current status. They communicate their workflow on their tasks consistently. And after solving a problem, they document the blocker that they might have had or the fix that they came up with. And at this point, they're starting to notice the patterns in the tasks they're working on, and they attempt to propose solutions when they see them the next time rather than just being directed about what to do. And ever so often, they might volunteer to demo their work for the other developers or for the upper management during team meetings. This is how that developer spends their day. They do a lot of researching, learning, and training. They're collaborating with the other developers. They're watching other developers. They're asking questions that make sense. They're documenting their thoughts, their blockers, their workflow, which results in them being able to spend less time coding and more time getting things done because they're able to debug when they come across their problems. They're able to write code that works, and eventually they're able to solve their problems and be efficient and move on to the next thing. So here we have a mid-level developer, Barry Brooks. He can manage 2+ projects. He finds solutions to his blockers independently. He's able to do his own research. If he's blocked, he knows how to pose the question to somebody correctly for efficiency. He answers questions and he offers solutions to the team when needed. He's honing his skills to proposing new workflow processes or approaches for new projects and tasks that he's assigned. Management can count on him to take the lead on projects that he's had responsibilities on before, that from other things that he's worked on. He documents his tasks. He documents his thoughts and his processes, and he's accountable for his tasks, able to lead junior team members, checking up on them and their progress, and lending help when it's needed. So if you compare junior developer A and B to this mid-level developer, which one between A and B are closer to Barry Brooks? Exactly. This is how mid-level developer Barry Brooks is spending his day. He's planning and prioritizing. He's communicating and collaborating with his team. He's doing research and learning, and he's doing a lot of independent coding. Any questions so far? All right, so if something isn't happening, there's almost always a reason why. So there's a reason why you're blocked, and there's a reason why you need to document your thoughts on these tasks. So why do these two junior developers end up being so different? Junior developer A doesn't communicate, he lacks confidence, It doesn't understand how the workflow process works, why it needs to be followed, why it's important, and they're not proactive enough to be a self-starter. Junior developer B understands their value and the importance of communicating. They understand the workflow process and they are constantly working on improving their game, which results in a higher level of confidence, and they produce quicker and better results overall. So, now introducing myself. I'm Caleb Crawley. This was me before. So, coming into the industry, I knew nothing about Drupal. I was terrified of migrations. I asked way too many vague questions without doing enough research. I couldn't learn from my mistakes because I didn't understand the problems that I was having. I couldn't identify what was going on. I couldn't communicate that to somebody for them to help me out. And it just led to a lot of, all right, what are you working on? You know, I'm having to answer questions. They're having to ask me questions that I'm having to answer when it should just be me providing enough information in the first place for me to get an answer immediately. So, but I was willing to learn, I was coachable, and I had drive. So, what am I now? I'm maintaining a full-time project using Acquia Studio, plus working on multiple other support clients who are hosted on Pantheon. I'm an Acquia certified mid-level developer. I've been a part of the community for 4 years, going on 4 years. Recently worked with the Drupal Association on community events. And I made 52 contributions to Drupal on various projects, whether they were contrib modules, themes, in 2022 alone. I'm currently working with the Department of Defense Education Activity doing migrations and site building. And I'm a Brawlhalla guy for anybody that knows what that is. So I can do this because of repetition. So I prepare monthly reports for the support clients that I work with. I organize their requests into well-documented tasks. I can complete those tasks, or I can hand them off to other developers and follow up on the progress that's being made. So we at Brightplum, we've noticed the patterns in our workflow, and we've come up with ways to almost automate them. We create checklists on tasks. We have templates that we use for task communication, daily updates in Slack, and templates for those monthly reports. So how did I figure it out? Communication through conversations. So I had conversations with my boss and mentors, asking them, what am I missing? I had conversations with my colleagues and asked them, how did you do this? Are there merge requests available I can look at? I had conversations with our clients and asked them, what do you need? And I had conversations with myself, asking myself, what do I want and who do I want to be? So you got to communicate. You have to get through the hard conversations that are confusing to get to the ones where everything makes sense. So you got to put effort into understanding how those around you think and learn what they want so that you can understand how to be valuable to them. You're going to hear things that you don't want to hear. You have to stay out of your feelings and realize that information is meant to help you. You're now in a community of people who want to do well and also want to see you do well. So when you understand that, you can move past everything else and focus on the improvements that need to be made. So, what did they constantly reinforce? So we're going to go over a couple of different main topics, but I want you to pay close attention to the themes that are going to be coming up, because they're going to be recurring. So first is attention to detail, then is communication and teamwork, then is time management, adaptability, repetition, and confidence. So first, attention to detail. The difference between good work and great work is attention to detail, because it improves efficiency and accuracy. So by carefully reviewing the things that you do, you're able to catch errors and inconsistencies, and you can minimize having to go back and redo anything, saving time and effort. So it may sometimes be the difference between being blocked and not being blocked. You know, as we say, sometimes the solution is just a matter of clearing the cache. Attention to detail also helps you break issues and tasks down into smaller parts for better understanding. It enhances others' trust in you as well as your own credibility. And if you produce quality work that is detailed, others are more likely to rely on you and trust your judgment. and it also shows pride in your work. Communication. If communication doesn't exist and it's not clear, nothing's going to get done, and nothing can get done. So no one's going to know what's needed to be done. No one's going to know what to do. No one's going to get promoted, and no one's going to get along. So when you communicate effectively, you're able to build relationships and you're able to build trust. You can avoid misunderstandings and conflicts, and active listening, empathy, and feedback are major parts of this. So communicate your expectations. Implement DailyBot into your Slack channels. DailyBot is something that first thing in the morning at a specific time it says, hey, what did you work on yesterday? And you can respond, you can give it a task link or task name. It says, what are you working on today? Are you blocked on anything? Asks you questions just like that, sends it to the team so that everybody can read it, know what's going on, you can hold each other accountable, and then that they know anything about the blocker that you have, they can just reach out and give you an answer, or they say, hey, do you need to, talk about this separately? How can I help? And then also you can look at other people's stuff, see what they're working on, see if there's anything that you're interested in learning, getting done, or helping out, and you can do the same thing for others on your team. So management's going to notice that. So when you're being proactive and you're communicating everything, not only are you showing yourself to be a self-starter, showing yourself to be efficient and having the drive to get things done on time and on target, they're going to notice it and they're going to appreciate you for it. So why else is communication important? Because you can make all the changes and improvements in the world, but if no one knows about it or what you've done, it's never going to matter. Next is time management. If you manage your time wisely, you'll learn more, you'll perform better, and you'll be more efficient. You'll also have more time to relax because you'll end up being ahead of schedule. So set your schedule blocks for the week on Sunday or Monday morning. You can do this by implementing Google Calendar or apps like Monday to help you keep track of your schedule. It's helpful for managing multiple tasks or projects because you know what time of your day is dedicated to what. So if somebody is trying to get you in a meeting and they're sending out the invite, they'll be notified that, hey, their time is blocked off at this time right now. So then they'll be able to hit you up and say, hey, are you able to move things around? Do we need to move this around? And so that way it'll be a more seamless experience for everybody working together, as well as you being able to organize what you're working on. So time management also improves your decision making because you'll be able to give yourself the time and space to weigh options and think thoroughly. If you're always in a rush, you're never going to be able to, actually sit down and weigh out the options and make the best decision at the end of the day because you're always going to be stressed out. So managing your time correctly helps others view you as reliable, efficient, and trustworthy. Next, we have adaptability. So at any point in time, your coworker might go on vacation, they might be pulled onto another project, or they might not be working with you anymore. You need to be prepared for upper management to come to you and say, and you say to them, yes, I can help, I can handle it. So there's 10 ways to do anything in Drupal, and everyone wants to pick a different number. So showing that you're adaptable shows that you have the ability to help out when needed, which proves your dependability. So to move up in the world, others have to be able to call on you. But if you're never ready or available or prepared, you won't be able to capitalize on those opportunities. Repetition. Repetition equals reputation. You'll learn faster, you'll learn how to recognize patterns in your tasks, and you'll remember the solutions to things that you got stuck on because it becomes muscle memory. The solutions become muscle memory. So now let's talk about documenting and ticket processes. So here's an example request from a client. So they've reached out to you. They said, hey, when I'm hovering my cursor over the subheadings, these are the subheadings. on the About page, it does not change my cursor to the click hand icon to indicate that the subhead is a link to another page. So if you compare those subheads with the ones on the Books page, and the user can actually tell it is a link to another page. So can you update the subheadings on the About page so that they behave the same way as those on the Book page when hovered over? So one thing that you should not ever do when you get a message from a client is just respond and say, okay. I'll get it done eventually. No, it's not how a mid-level developer would respond to the client or how they would handle this task. So don't just assume that you know what to do because the client assumes that you do. There's a process that you should follow because it will help you communicate expectations, understand the workflow, be a better teammate, and showcase your ability to take the lead. The easiest way to streamline this process is to use a ticketing system. So here we have a ticketing system. This is ClickUp. This is how a junior developer A would set up this task. So is there anything here that anybody can notice immediately that's missing or that's happening here?
You're just putting the client's words as is, you're not interpreting them, and the title is not something that's easy to glance at and understand.
Exactly. So the title is vague, and all they did was copy and paste what the client requested into the bio. So there's also a few other things that's missing here. But if we move on to how this thing should be set up, as we said, the first thing you should do when you receive a request from a client is create a ticket for it. Then you want to make sure that you understand what the client is asking for. So you can use the ticket comment section to write out how you understand the request, ask others on your team if anything seems confusing. So as you see, instead of copying and pasting the client request and just putting it in the bio, I added it as a comment. And then underneath, I put together my example response of how I would respond to that client. So you can use the comments to write out how you understand the request, ask others on your team if anything is confusing, and after you understand, you want to then reach out to the client as soon as possible, so preferably within 24 hours. So you want to relay back to them in an organized way what they're asking for. That way they can confirm or correct you. So you'll see here that I say, I understand that you're requesting that all subheadings with links have a pointer on the hover rather than the standard mouse. Is that correct? When you confirm this, I can get started. So I didn't just say, okay, it'll get done. I didn't assume that I knew what they meant. I'm relaying back to them what they asked for so they can say, yes, this is exactly what I want you to do, or no, this is what you misunderstood. And then when they say I misunderstood, I will do the same thing again. Okay, so from what I understand that you're asking for now is this. And then once they say yes, and it's a solid yes, then I can move forward. So another thing that was missing on the last task was an estimate. So it's very hard to put an estimate together when you don't have a user story and you don't have the task broken down into steps. Another thing is adding a branch name for the task. So making this something that will be easily transferable into, Git, or referring to this in a Slack channel will be much easier if I gave this task an ID. So next under there you'll see a user story. So when the client responds and says, yes, this is what I need you to do, you can come here and say, okay, as a visitor to the site, when I hover over these subheadings that have links, I should see the mouse turn into a pointer finger. Now I know what the acceptance criteria for this task is, and I know how I can move forward. So knowing those things, how do I get that done? Based on how this project is set up, I know that we use SAS, so I need to adjust the SAS file and add a hover pointer on all element H2 with the subheading class elements. Then the next thing I need to do is compile the SAS and test. And the branch that this is on is BP-123-subheadings, and that's the branch name for this. So when I get that done, I can create a merge request, and I can paste that merge request link into this task, and I can say, hey, this is ready to be reviewed. Can somebody check it out? Make sure it looks good. And at that point, it should be well documented, and then we can reach back out to the client and say, hey, this is what we've done. Take a look at this and see if it meets the requirements that you have. So, like we said, you would come back, break down the steps. That way you'll be able to follow along with everything, and everybody will be able to follow along with you rather than everyone just winging it. So, also, top left, you can see that we have at Brightplum, in ClickUp, they have ways to organize the statuses. So it's not just nobody knows where you are with this. You can see that this is a task that I'm actively working on, so it's in progress. So after it's in progress and I put the merge request here, then I will move it to ready for QA, and I would assign that to the person who does the QA task. And the other most important thing is I add a due date. So that's how you keep yourself accountable for what you're working on. So another way to streamline the task process is to use an email almost automation system. So we use the software at Brightplum, so when the client reaches out and lets us, and gives us a request, we have these things called macros, which we use to respond to them. So we don't just wing it and make up something, you know. Even if it could be a concise response, ourselves, we do have a process that we want to stick to and say, okay, we repeat to them what they're asking for, you know, and there's like a template that we follow with acceptance criteria that then they would say, yes, it's correct or not correct. So it keeps everybody moving on one accord, basically. And it also helps you, you know, because there might be a time where somebody asks you a very complicated question, you know, so having a way to bring all of that together in a template and respond to that client, you know, makes things easier for everybody. So now let's say you get blocked. Maybe after adjusting the SAS file, you check the site and you don't see that the changes are reflected. Maybe you're connected to Pantheon and the upstream pipeline keeps failing. So what do you do next? The first thing to note is, did you follow the task process, ensuring that you didn't skip any steps and that you did everything correctly? So did you compile the SAS like I said in step 2? Did you clear the cache? Is there a upstream config file that's created when it comes to pushing this up through Git and trying to see the changes reflected in Pantheon? After you've ensured the following steps are done correctly, then you need to research the issue that you're experiencing. If an error is being thrown, look up that error. Use Stack Overflow. Maybe even Drupal.org can unblock you. Join in different Slack channels so you can, you know, reach out to people who are a part of these Slack channels, like, you know, the Drupal Slack. They have a ton of different channels where, you know, they're organized based on the topic of what you're working on or the blocker that you might be having. So those are resources that can unblock you. So if they do, then you need to document what you found, where you found it, and how you fixed it in the ticket. If none of that works, congrats, you've done what most would not do. You've tried to fix it yourself. But all of us need help sometimes, so you might feel like you need to still reach out to somebody. So let's talk about how to do that when we're reaching out internally to our own team. So, asking the right questions. When you go into any channel to ask someone for help, remember that they might not necessarily know what you're working on or even talking about, because we're all working on our own tasks at the end of the day. So you need to provide context. So link to the task or mention the task name, and then repeat the user story to the person who you're asking. As a user, when I go to the About page, I should see the pointer clicker on subheadings on the About page. You know, then what's happening instead? The regular pointer clicker still appears on the subheadings. 4, this is what I've tried based on this research that I did. Link to the article that you read or the thread that you were using as a reference, with a link to the branch merge request that you created. So, number 5, this is what I think the problem might be. As part of you trying to learn problem solving, make an educated guess on why you think you might be blocked. You might not be correct, but at least you're on the right path of, trying to connect the dots of things. So by phrasing what's happening in this way, you can communicate to your team that you at least tried to solve this yourself. You told them what you've already tried that didn't work, so they don't have to repeat a non-working solution. And you're also giving them context so that they can help you out as quickly as possible and then return back to their own responsibilities. This behavior showcases your ability to be a team player, your communication skills, your problem-solving skills, and your empathy for others. In turn, they're going to appreciate you for respecting their time, and upper management can see that although you couldn't solve the issue, you knew how to communicate. This demonstrates that you're on the right track. So, when you understand the differences, so here, differences between being a mid-level developer and a junior developer. A mid-level developer is a leader and a self-starter. Junior developer might wait around for direction. Mid-level developer is dependable and reliable. Junior, dependent with a lack of experience. Mid-level developer is a big picture problem solver, and a junior developer has linear thinking. So don't just sit around waiting for others to tell you what to do. Ask how you can help. Based on your goals, do research, learn, and practice. You were hired knowing that you lack an experience. That's not the problem. The problem is being overly dependent on others and not having the motivation to be proactive. So build a reputation for yourself for being dependable and reliable. If something needs to be done, bite the bullet and get it done. If you need a whole project that's been lingering around that has to be done by tonight, bite the bullet, cut everything out, get it done. Linear thinking results in only being able to see the next thing directly in front of you. You're only focused on the next task or the current situation. You need to see the big picture or have an aerial view of your career, your team, and the projects that you're working on, and learn how they all relate to each other. So when you understand the differences, the goal becomes clear. So follow the process. What do we start off with? Delivering on value. As a junior dev, as a human in this world, it's now your responsibility to become an asset to those around you and to people who care about you, even those who don't. So prove you can hold your own, and then challenge yourself to handle more. Become a master of your craft. Show you can further increase your value to and for those who invest in you and depend on your success. So, number 1, communication, documentation, planning, attention to detail, time management. Follow the process. Embrace your strengths and minimize your weaknesses. Learn Site Studio, learn migrations, understand how Drupal works. Keep asking for tasks and projects with things that you want to learn so that you can learn how to master them. Communication is key. Your company culture, your current status, and roadmaps for success should be clear with an open door policy when it comes to discussions about them. When you think you need to be working on 5 projects and clocking 80 hours a week, when really all you need to do is get Acquia certified. That's the difference between, communicating and not communicating. You don't want to be what I call hustling backwards. So, when you communicate, you manage your time wisely and have attention to detail, practice repetition, and maximize your strength and minimize your weaknesses. It will lead to mastery. So, now at this point, you can communicate expectations, needs, and wants. Then plan and prioritize your budget, schedules, and expectations. Deliver those expectations on time and on target. And document your process, your thoughts, blockers, and fixes. So if you follow the process, you'll be able to have conversations with clients and explain to them, this is how we're delivering on what you asked, and this is how long it's going to take. You're going to be able to have productive conversations with your colleagues and tell them, here's how I'll solve this problem. You're going to be able to have conversations with management and mentors and tell them, these are my goals, this is what I'm working on now, and this is what I've completed. And experience will allow you to start coming up with ideas that work for everyone. You're going to be able to start making suggestions based on experience, and you're going to be able to volunteer to do demos for the team during meetings. All these things are going to help you stand out. So I appreciate you all for taking the time to come out to this talk. This was my first talk. Are there any questions?
Great job.
Appreciate it. No questions? We all good?
Do you have tips for like how to coach someone on this, or just like presenting these? Yeah,
I
it's
can
kind of
answer
heavy.
that.
Yeah.
I can answer that. So
Okay.
I'm Caitlin's boss. So
Yeah. Frederick Mitchell, everybody.
It's a great question. So I think the one thing that I've learned working with Caitlin in terms of coaching people who, to go through this process is, when you're at a particular part and you're trying to bring someone along, you almost have to do the same process because they will buy in once they see you doing it. So if you have tips or things you want to say, right, communicating them, writing them down ahead of time, pointing and saying, hey, this is what's going on, framing that process of where you're trying to go, why the step-by-step makes sense, what the broader goals are, constantly communicating. Share the talk, exactly,
Yeah.
right?
It's recorded, so.
So that constant documentation, that writing reinforces, right, what hopefully that person will also learn, because that aspect of writing gets the thoughts out of your head, it documents it. But I think the most important thing is it allows each other to hold mutually accountable. So it's one thing, especially from an experience perspective, sometimes there's a power dynamic where someone with more experience maybe misses the fact that someone with not as much experience may have some anxieties about sharing things that are not really sure,
Yeah.
right? And so they're sometimes afraid to make a mistake. In our particular case, by me taking the time to write things down, and then I point to him and say, hey, have you followed this? And he said, hey, I did this, but this is me. I'm saying, oh, you're right. That's my mistake. I made a mistake. I need to be more clear on what the process is. And now our relationship is strengthened because I'm taking accountability for how I can help it better, which hopefully would translate to him taking accountability if certain things, may be missed, and we just, iron sharpens iron. So that process of doing what you're trying to get the person to do builds that trust, so then that communication can flow a bit more in terms of that coaching piece you're talking about.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I don't work directly with my coachee every day.
Mhm.
It's more of a check-in type thing, but I can see how that would.
Yeah,
You can still translate that.
absolutely,
So-
yeah.
Yes.
So looking ahead to becoming like a senior developer, what sorts of things do you see in senior developers that you want to like work towards?
So a personal goal of mine is to become a Acquia certified full stack developer. And so a lot of the senior developers that I'm under now, they're good with Site Studio. They're great with solving problems. I consider myself good at solving problems. They're great at it. They are very independent. They have great relationships with our clients, and so those are just an example of a couple of things and that I'm working on in order to become a senior developer myself. Does that make sense? Yep.
Yeah, I was going to ask, do you think you found it like more helpful for working on a team and working under like a lead developer that you guys all use the same dev stack and kind of like same IDEs, same coding style, same like things like that? Or are you working more independently on your own dev machine for your quirks and likes, and they're just kind of reiterating like different concepts that they want you to use when using code solutions?
So each of us do have our own setups, but the coincidental part about it is we mostly love MacBooks. So I know most of us are using PHP Storm, so it's definitely helpful to be using similar tools, especially if you're a junior developer, to be using the similar tools as somebody over you, because you don't want to be trying to solve one issue and then come across an incompatibility based on somebody using Microsoft Visual Studio and you using PHP Storm. Now y'all got to get past that blocker in order to actually solve the primary thing that you're trying to get done. So it's definitely helpful to be working on similar things. I've noticed that, you know, bridging the gap between the things that the senior developers and old developers had that I didn't have, you know, made it easier for them to help me out. So, but with a lot of our clients that we work on, you know, we do end up having to use similar dev stacks. So we're using Lando and Docker. You know, we pretty much set up everything in a Lando environment, so that whether they're using Windows or, you know, we're Linux setup, or I'm using Mac, whatever, we all can pretty much, if we're having errors, it's pretty much coming from the Lando.
Someone using Windows.
Huh?
Oh,
Yeah.
I have a Docker setup too.
Yeah.
I try to get people to use iOS or Mac software, but we always have the contractors that come in and they'll be trying to spin up our environment on a Windows machine, and generally, even if you're using Dockerized like app, it's a lot of times it doesn't work. You have to debug stuff.
Yeah.
And it's where adaptability comes in, one of your points.
Exactly.
It's like, it's much better as a junior dev to use the same tools as the other devs. That way you can work together.
Yeah, definitely. Adaptability has been infinitely, you know, helpful. Just having Frederick drive that as a point towards me, you know. But the willingness, the coachability, and the drive, you know, is definitely the building blocks to being adaptable, because you want to be, you know. You don't want to just act like you know everything. You don't want to just stick to what you know and think that it's the right way to do everything. You know, being adaptable is that's what's helped me, you know, propel myself, you know, just from junior to mid, you know, and I'm gonna use the same thing to propel me from mid to senior. Anybody else? Well, did I answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay.
Is there a rule of thumb for like how long you spin your wheels on a problem before you ask for help, and like how you expect, if you expect that person to be able to respond immediately, or if you know you're going to have to wait, how you manage that kind of time?
So you said, is there a rule of thumb for how much research you do on a blocker that you have?
Yeah.
That's a great question. I wouldn't say that I have one that's set in stone for how many things I'm going to try to read or not. I do know that if I'm coming across, basically based on the results that I get when I'm searching up the error, if there's a ton of different solutions, you know, then I'll try as many and read as much as I can. But if there's, you know, sometimes you'll bring up you'll search something that says, you know, this isn't returning any search results, you know, or I'll hit up a Slack channel and nobody's able to respond at the time. So it does vary, but I would say the more answers available, the more you need to be doing your own research. But yeah, as you know, when we were talking about the first dev persona, you know, asking questions and then doing a lot of waiting, that's part of the of having lots of different resources to use. So if I hit up, you know, a senior dev and ask them a question, I got to understand that they got a lot of things that they're working on. So that's my responsibility to make sure, you know, I'm in other Slack channels where other people are available. You know, I have good relationships with other people that we're working with so that they don't mind answering questions, you know, because I can prove myself, you know, I'm going to follow the direction. Then they'll be able to point me in the right direction. I can go do that, and I can come back and say, hey, thanks a lot, this worked, or this is happening. Do you recognize what's going on here? You know, and we can move forward that way. But you got to be understanding that, you know, everybody's got their own things going on, so you can't just expect somebody to respond to you in 5 minutes. But if they do happen to be the only person I feel like can answer that question at the time, I might give it, you know, 15 to 20 minutes. If they don't say anything, I'll make sure that they're online and I'll tag them again. At that point, you know, then if I'm still stuck, I'll hit up Fred and say, hey, what do you think I should do about this?
So we should all ask him.
Yeah, I'll make sure that everybody gets his Slack when we leave here.
Are you on Slack?
Yeah. I think the hidden point to what Caleb is sort of talking about is what we've sort of figured out, to your point about when blockers happen, that process, the thing that I think we sort of unlocked is, and you mentioned about senior devs and their troubleshooting, is sometimes senior devs in their experience will have seen it before, or they kind of know the system enough to see, like, have you tried this, like push them in a certain direction, right? So blockers can be answered as either here's the solution or have you check this, and then they kind of go out. The reason why the process of documenting and journaling, and this is what I tried, is because